The difference between those who quit and those who conquer? It's not talent, it's not luck, it's mindset. If you can teach your mind to endure, to keep moving when comfort says stop, then there's nothing this world can deny you. I never had all the answers, but I never stopped looking. And that's why I succeeded where others gave up. Master the mind that never quits, and the world will call you unstoppable. Subscribe to our channel if you're ready to master your mind. And tell us, where are you watching from? Let me tell you about the night my laboratory burned to the ground, December 1914. I was 67 years old, and in a matter of hours I watched my life's work become ash and smoke. 10 years of records, prototypes, and experiments. Gone. Millions. In equipment, destroyed. The work of my greatest inventions, reduced to cinders. Most men would have seen this as the end. They would have looked at those flames and seen only destruction. But do you know what I saw? I saw clarity. I saw opportunity. I saw the furnace where true character is forged. That night, as the fire raged, I called to my son Charles. "Go get your mother and all her friends," I told him. "They'll never see a fire like this again." You see, when disaster strikes, you have two choices. You can let it break you, or you can let it remake you. By the next morning, while the ashes were still warm, I had already begun planning the reconstruction. "We'll rebuild bigger, we'll rebuild better," I declared to my team. And you know what? We did. Within 3 weeks, we were partially back in production. Within a year, we had delivered our first phonograph since the fire. This is what I want you to understand about the furnace of resolve. It's not about what burns away, it's about what remains. When everything superficial is stripped bare, when comfort becomes a distant memory, when all you have left is your raw determination, that's when you discover what you're truly made of. I've seen thousands of men with brilliant ideas. I've met countless individuals with natural talent. But I'll tell you this, I've seen those same brilliant men quit at the first sign of adversity. I've watched those talented individuals crumble when things got difficult. Why? Because they never understood that greatness isn't born in comfort. It's forged in fire. You're facing your own fires right now, aren't you? Maybe it's not a literal inferno like mine was, but I know you're battling something, a business that won't take off, a skill you can't master, a goal that seems to slip further away with each attempt, and you're wondering if it's worth it. You're questioning if you have what it takes. Let me be clear. The fire you're facing right now is not your enemy. It's your ally. It's the very thing that will separate you from every other person who wanted what you want but wasn't willing to endure what you're enduring. Think about steel. How is it made? It's subjected to extreme heat, incredible pressure, and repeated hammering. Without that process, it would remain soft, malleable iron. Your challenges, your setbacks, your moments of doubt, these are your forge. They're not happening to you, they're happening for you. I didn't succeed because I was smarter than everyone else. I succeeded because I built my resolve in the furnace of difficulty. Every failed experiment, every skeptical investor, every technical challenge, these were the flames that tempered my determination. You want to know the secret to never quitting? Stop seeing difficulty as something to avoid. Start seeing it as the very thing that makes you indestructible. When you embrace the fire, when you understand that your greatest growth happens in moments of greatest challenge, that's when you become unstoppable. Remember this. The same fire that melts butter forges steel. The difference isn't in the fire, it's in the material. So let me ask you, what are you made of? Are you butter, dissolving at the first sign of heat? Or are you steel in the making, ready to be forged by the very challenges that break others? Your furnace is waiting. The heat is rising. The pressure is building. This is your moment of choice. Will you run from the fire? Or will you step into it, knowing that on the other side of these flames lies the person you're meant to become? The world doesn't need more people who quit when things get hot. It needs more people who understand that the heat is where heroes are made. Step into your furnace. Embrace the forge. Let the fire do its work. Because once you've been tempered by the flames of adversity, nothing in this world can break you. I did not fail 10,000 times. I successfully found 10,000 ways that would not work. You think this is just wordplay? No. This is the fundamental difference between those who achieve their dreams and those who abandon them. When I was working on the electric light bulb, every unsuccessful attempt taught me something. Each failure was a page in my blueprint for success. Most people see failure as a wall. I saw it as a window that showed me exactly what not to do, bringing me one step closer to what I should do. Let me tell you something about failure that most people don't understand. It's the most efficient teacher you'll ever have. Success. Success can be accidental. Success can be circumstantial. But failure is specific. Failure is detailed. Failure shows you with perfect precision where your thinking needs adjustment. I remember when I was developing the alkaline storage battery. It took me 8 years. 8 years of daily experiments. 8 years of what most would call failures. But here's what they didn't see. Each failure was actually a discovery. Each unsuccessful test eliminated one more variable from the equation. Each dead end showed me where not to waste more time. You're probably thinking, but Edison, 8 years is a long time to keep failing. And you're right, it is. But here's the question you should be asking instead. What if I had quit after 7 years? What if I had decided that 7 years of failure was enough? I would have missed the breakthrough by mere months, and someone else would have eventually solved it, taking all the lessons I had learned and pushing just a little bit further. This is why I say failure isn't failure unless you stop. It's not the end unless you make it the end. Every failed experiment is just a step in the process. Every setback is just data. Every mistake is just information. Think about a map. What makes it useful? It shows you where to go, yes. But more importantly, it shows you where not to go. It shows you the dead ends, the dangerous paths, the routes that won't get you to your destination. Your failures are drawing your map. Each one is a clear marker saying, not this way. And with each marker, your path to success becomes clearer. But here's the key. You have to be systematic about it. You can't just fail randomly and expect to learn. You need to document your failures, analyze them, understand exactly why each attempt didn't work. This is what separates mere failure from scientific progress. I kept detailed records of every experiment, every single one. When something didn't work, I wrote down why. When an approach failed, I documented exactly how it failed. These weren't records of defeat, they were blueprints for eventual success. You see, most people try something once, fail, and then try something completely different. That's not how invention works. That's not how progress works. Real progress comes from methodical iteration. Try something, record the results, adjust one variable, try again, record those results. This is how you turn failure from a wall into a staircase. Let me give you a task. Start keeping a failure journal. Every time something doesn't work, write it down. Be specific. What exactly didn't work? Why didn't it work? What did you learn? What will you adjust next time? Do this and watch how your perspective on failure transforms. Remember, when I invented the light bulb, I had to first invent 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb. Each failure was a necessary step. Each setback was crucial data. Each no brought me closer to the final yes. The next time you fail, and you will fail if you're trying anything worthwhile, I want you to stop and ask yourself, what did this just teach me? What variable can I now eliminate? How is this failure actually drawing my blueprint for success? Because here's the truth. Success isn't the opposite of failure. Success is failure's product. Success is what happens when you've gathered enough failures to finally see the complete picture. So fail forward, fail systematically, fail with purpose. And watch as those failures slowly but surely construct the blueprint of your success. Genius is 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. You've probably heard this quote attributed to me, But let me tell you what it really means. It's not about working hard, it's about showing up every single day. When I first set up my laboratory in Menlo Park, people called it an invention factory. They thought I was crazy. An invention factory? Impossible. Innovation can't be scheduled, they said. Creativity can't be manufactured, they insisted. But I knew something they didn't. The greatest inventions in history weren't born from singular moments of brilliance. They were built through daily, consistent effort. Let me tell you how I worked. I didn't wait for inspiration to strike. I didn't rely on sporadic bursts of genius. Instead, I created a system, a routine. Every day, I would be in my laboratory by 8 a.m. Every day, I would run experiments. Every day, I would document results. Rain or shine, success or failure, I showed up. You see, most people are waiting. They're waiting for the perfect moment. They're waiting for inspiration. They're waiting for some magical alignment of circumstances that will make their work easier. But here's what I learned. Waiting is just another word for quitting. I remember during the development of the phonograph, there were weeks, months even, where nothing seemed to work. Every experiment failed. Every modification produced the same disappointing results. But I kept showing up. Why? Because I understood something fundamental about success. It's not about intensity, it's about consistency. Think about water hitting a rock. A single powerful splash might make a lot of noise, but it won't leave a mark. But a steady drip, day after day, year after year, that will carve through solid stone. That's what showing up every day does. It's the steady drip that carves through the impossible. I had a strict policy in my laboratory. We didn't stop working just because we weren't seeing results. In fact, those were the days when showing up mattered most. Anyone can stay motivated when things are going well. The real test of character is showing up when everything seems pointless. Here's what most people don't understand about innovation. It's not about having better ideas than everyone else. It's about testing more ideas than everyone else. And you can't test ideas if you're not in the laboratory. You can't make discoveries if you're waiting for the perfect moment. I developed a simple rule. Never go to sleep without doing at least one experiment, even if I was tired, even if I was discouraged, even if I felt like I was wasting my time. One experiment every day, no exceptions. This habit of showing up created something powerful, momentum. You see, when you show up every day, you build more than just results. You build belief, you build confidence. You build the kind of momentum that can carry you through the hardest challenges. Let me give you an example. When I was working on the electric light, I had a team of men working around the clock in shifts. Why? Because I understood that progress doesn't care about your schedule. Innovation doesn't wait for convenient moments. The solution might come in the first hour or the 1,000th hour, but you'll never know unless you're there. Here's what I want you to understand. Showing up isn't about being perfect. It's not about making breakthrough progress every day. Sometimes showing up means failing. Sometimes it means making microscopic progress. Sometimes it just means maintaining your commitment to the process. But here's the magic. When you show up every day, you start to eliminate variables. You stop wondering, what if I had worked harder? You stop questioning whether you're doing enough. You know you're doing enough because you're doing it every day. The habit of showing up also does something else. It makes you anti-fragile. When you show up every day, setbacks don't devastate you. Failures don't discourage you. Why? Because you know you'll be back tomorrow. You know that today's failure is just today's failure. It has no power over tomorrow's potential. So here's your challenge. Stop waiting for motivation. Stop waiting for inspiration. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Instead, create a non-negotiable daily practice. It doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't have to be impressive. It just has to be consistent. Remember, the difference between who you are and who you want to be is what you do daily, not occasionally, not when you feel like it, daily. The habit of showing up is the foundation of every great achievement. It's the difference between dreamers and achievers. It's the gap between what could be and what will be. Show up today. Show up tomorrow. Keep showing up until showing up becomes who you are, not just what you do. Because in the end, the only question that matters is, did you show up when it was hard? Did you show up when it seemed pointless? Did you show up when everyone else quit? That's the habit that builds empires. That's the practice that changes the world. That's the difference between having a dream and living it. Your mind is the most sophisticated machine you'll ever operate. But here's what most people don't understand. Like any machine, it needs to be engineered for optimal performance. You can't just let it run on default settings and expect extraordinary results. When I first started my career, I wasn't just inventing devices, I was inventing myself. I had to build a mind that could solve problems others couldn't even see. I had to develop a way of thinking that could turn obstacles into opportunities. This didn't happen by accident. It was engineered. Let me share with you the blueprint I developed for engineering, a mind that produces results. First, you need to understand that every problem is a system. Every challenge is a mechanism. When you approach life like an engineer, you stop seeing obstacles as personal affronts and start seeing them as puzzles to be solved. I remember when I was developing the motion picture camera. Everyone said it couldn't be done. They said the human eye couldn't process images quickly enough. But instead of accepting their limitations, I broke down the problem into its component parts. How does the eye process movement? What's the minimum time needed for an image to register? These weren't insurmountable challenges. They were engineering specifications. But here's where most people go wrong. They stop at thinking. They engineer brilliant solutions in their minds, but never translate them into reality. This is why you need to act like a builder. A builder doesn't just draw plans, they pour foundations. They don't just imagine structures, they erect them. In my laboratory, we had a simple rule. Thinking and doing were inseparable twins. Every idea had to be tested. Every theory had to be built. Every concept had to be constructed. We didn't just think about solutions. We built them, tested them, broke them, and built them again. This is the marriage of engineering and building. Systematic thought combined with relentless action. When you think like an engineer, you break down complex problems into solvable parts. When you act like a builder, you tackle those parts one by one, constructing your solution piece by piece. Let me give you a practical example. When I was working on the phonograph, I didn't start by trying to capture all of sound. I started with one component, how to record vibrations, then another, how to store those vibrations, then another, how to reproduce them. Each was an engineering problem that required a builder's determination. Here's how you can apply this in your own life. Take your biggest challenge right now. Don't look at it as one massive, overwhelming problem. Break it down like an engineer. What are its components? What are the individual systems at work? What are the specific mechanisms that need to be addressed? Then, once you've engineered your understanding of the problem, start building. Don't wait until you have every detail figured out. Don't wait until you're certain of success. Start constructing solutions. Start testing approaches. Start gathering data through action. The engineer in you should be constantly analyzing, measuring, and refining. The builder in you should be constantly acting, adjusting, and progressing. This isn't about perfection. It's about production. It's about creating real results in the real world. I developed what I called the Edison method. Identify the problem, break it down into its smallest components, test each component systematically, document everything, adjust based on results, and repeat until successful. This isn't just an invention process, it's a success process. Think about how this applies to your goals. Are you approaching them with an engineer's precision? Are you breaking them down into testable components? Are you documenting your progress? Are you adjusting based on results? Most importantly, are you actually building, or are you just planning to build? The world is full of people who think like engineers but never build anything. It's also full of people who build frantically but never think systematically. Your power lies in combining these approaches. Engineer your plan, then build it. Analyze your results, then build again. Think deeply, but act decisively. Remember, every great achievement in human history started as an idea, but it didn't stop there. It was engineered into a plan, then built into reality. The light bulb wasn't just thought into existence, it was engineered and built, tested, and refined, failed and rebuilt until it worked. Your mind is the machine that will build your future. Engineer it for success. Program it for solutions. But don't stop there. Take those engineered solutions and build them into reality. Test them in the real world. Gather data. Adjust your approach. Keep building. This is how you turn dreams into inventions, and inventions into innovations. This is how you transform ideas into impact. Think like an engineer, systematically, analytically, precisely. Act like a builder, consistently, persistently, relentlessly. Your laboratory is waiting. Your blueprints are ready. The only question is, are you ready to engineer your success and build your future? What if I told you that disappointment is a choice, that rejection is merely information, that failure is simply feedback? You might think I'm being naive, but I've lived this truth through thousands of experiments, countless setbacks, and decades of criticism. Let me tell you about the day I presented my first phonograph to the French Academy of Sciences. They called it ventriloquism. They accused me of trickery. The leading scientists of the day, men I respected, dismissed my invention as a hoax. Now, most people would have been crushed by this rejection, but do you know what I felt? Curiosity. I was curious about why they couldn't see what I saw. This immunity to disappointment wasn't something I was born with. It was something I developed, something I engineered through understanding a fundamental truth. Disappointment is not an external event. It's an internal reaction, and like any internal reaction, it can be controlled, modified, or eliminated entirely. When I was working on the electric light, I faced criticism from gas company executives, skepticism from other inventors, and outright mockery from the scientific community. Edison's folly, they called it. The New York Times wrote that my ideas were good enough for our transatlantic friends, who would not object to paying for a light which would not light. But here's what they didn't understand. Their disappointment in my work had no bearing on its validity. Their skepticism was irrelevant to my progress. I had learned to separate external reactions from internal truth. This is the first step in becoming immune to disappointment, understanding that other people's opinions are data, not destiny. Let me share with you the system I developed for becoming immune to disappointment. First, you must understand that disappointment is based on expectations. When reality doesn't meet your expectations, disappointment occurs. But what if you could engineer your expectations to align with the natural process of innovation and progress? Here's how I did it. I expected everything to fail first, not because I was pessimistic, but because I understood that failure is the natural first step of progress. When an experiment failed, it wasn't disappointing. It was expected. It was part of the process. This shifted my entire emotional relationship with setbacks. Think about it like building an immune system. Your body becomes resistant to disease through exposure. Your mind can become resistant to disappointment through the same process. Each setback, each failure, each rejection is strengthening your immunity, but only if you see it that way. I remember when I was developing the storage battery. It took over 50,000 experiments to get it right. Imagine if I had let myself feel disappointed after each failure. I would have been emotionally exhausted before I was even halfway there. Instead, I saw each failed experiment as a successful elimination of what wouldn't work. Here's another key to becoming immune to disappointment. Separate your identity from your experiments. When an experiment fails, it's not you who failed. It's just the experiment. When people reject your idea, they're not rejecting you. They're rejecting their understanding of your idea. This distinction is crucial. I never saw myself as failing. I saw myself as conducting experiments that produced various results. Some results moved us closer to our goal. Others showed us what wouldn't work. But none of them were disappointments, because all of them were information. Let me give you a practical exercise. The next time you face a setback, train yourself to ask these questions. What information did this just give me? How can I use this data in my next attempt? What variable can I adjust based on this result? Notice how these questions leave no room for disappointment. They transform what could be an emotional setback into an intellectual stepping stone. This immunity to disappointment isn't about becoming cold or unfeeling. It's about redirecting your emotional energy from unproductive disappointment to productive curiosity. When someone tells you something can't be done, don't feel disappointed. Get curious about why they think that. Their limitations might reveal opportunities you hadn't considered. I developed what I called the Edison response. When faced with a setback, respond with increased determination and curiosity rather than disappointment and doubt. This isn't just positive thinking, it's strategic thinking. It's about maintaining your experimental momentum regardless of external feedback. Remember, disappointment is a luxury you can't afford if you're trying to change the world. Every moment you spend feeling disappointed is a moment you could have spent experimenting, adjusting, and progressing. Think about the greatest challenges you're facing right now. Are you letting disappointment slow your progress? Are you allowing rejection to determine your path? It's time to engineer a new response. It's time to build immunity to the emotional reactions that hold most people back. Your immunity to disappointment will be your superpower. When others get discouraged, you'll stay curious. When others quit, you'll keep experimenting. When others let rejection define their limits, you'll let it fuel your determination. This is how you become unstoppable. Not by avoiding failure, but by becoming immune to its emotional impact. Not by escaping rejection, but by transforming it into fuel for your next experiment. Not by eliminating disappointment, but by engineering a mind that sees beyond it to the opportunities that always lie on the other side. They called me obsessed. They said I was maniacal in my pursuit of solutions. They weren't wrong. But they misunderstood something fundamental. Obsession, properly channeled, is the most powerful force for progress humanity has ever known. Let me tell you about the time I worked for 60 hours straight on the phonograph. No sleep, barely any food, just pure focused concentration on solving the problem at hand. My assistants thought I had lost my mind, but I wasn't crazy. I was in what I call the inventor's trance, that state where the problem and its solution become your entire world. But here's what most people don't understand about obsession. It's not about losing control. It's about gaining it. It's about channeling every ounce of your mental and physical energy toward a single purpose. The trick isn't to eliminate obsession. It's to harness it. I developed what I call the Edison immersion method. When I became interested in a problem, I would immerse myself in every aspect of it. I would read everything ever written about it. I would examine every previous attempt to solve it. I would test every possible variable. This wasn't just interest. This was orchestrated obsession. You see, most people are afraid of becoming obsessed. They've been told it's unhealthy. They've been warned to maintain balance. But I'll tell you something. Every significant breakthrough in human history was achieved by someone who was, by ordinary standards, obsessed. The key is to make your obsession productive. Here's how I did it. First, I would define the exact problem I wanted to solve. Not a vague goal, but a specific challenge. Create a light bulb that can burn for 100 hours is much more focused than improve artificial lighting. Then, I would break this obsession into measurable experiments. Each day had its targets. Each week had its goals. This transformed raw obsession into structured progress. It's the difference between a wildfire that destroys and a controlled burn that clears the way for new growth. I remember during the development of the alkaline battery, I became so engrossed that I would forget to eat. My wife would bring food to the laboratory, and I would absent-mindedly nibble while continuing my work. Was this extreme? Perhaps, but it was also productive. Every hour of that focused obsession brought me closer to the solution. Here's what I want you to understand. Your obsessions are not your enemies. They're your fuel. The things that keep you up at night, the problems that won't let you rest, the challenges that consume your thoughts, these are not distractions from your path. They are your path. But, and this is crucial, you must learn to direct this obsessive energy. Raw obsession is like a river without banks. It spreads everywhere and accomplishes nothing. Channeled obsession, like a river directed through a hydroelectric dam, can power entire cities. I developed specific practices for channeling obsession. First, I kept detailed records of every thought, every experiment, every result. This transformed obsessive thinking into systematic progress. When your mind is racing with ideas, capture them, document them, turn that mental energy into tangible output. Second, I created what I called problem-solving marathons. These were focused periods where I would work on nothing but one specific challenge. No distractions, no diversions, just pure concentrated effort toward a single goal. But, and this is important, these marathons had clear start and end points. They were controlled burns, not wildfires. Third, I built support systems around my obsessions. I hired assistants who understood my method. I created laboratories designed for long periods of focused work. I arranged my entire life to support these deep dives into problem solving. Let me give you a practical example. When I was obsessed with creating a better storage battery, I didn't just think about it constantly. I created a systematic approach to that obsession. I set up multiple testing stations. I established clear criteria for success. I created schedules for continuous experimentation. This transformed restless obsession into relentless progress. Here's how you can apply this to your own obsessions. Start by identifying what truly consumes your thoughts. What problems keep you up at night? What challenges won't let you rest? Don't run from these obsessions. Embrace them, but embrace them systematically. Create a structure for your obsession. Set specific goals. Establish clear metrics. Define what success looks like. Turn your mental chaos into methodical progress. Don't let your obsession control you. Control it. Remember, the difference between a madman and a genius often lies not in the intensity of their obsession, but in how they channel it. The madman is controlled by his obsessions. The genius controls them. Your obsessions are trying to tell you something. They're pointing toward your path. They're highlighting what matters most to you. Don't silence them. Organize them. Don't suppress them. Direct them. Don't fear them. Use them. This is how you turn obsession into progress. By accepting its power but controlling its direction. By embracing its energy but structuring its application. By letting it drive you forward but never letting it drive you off course. The world needs your obsessions. It needs your deep, focused attention to problems that matter. It needs your relentless pursuit of solutions. But it needs these things in a form that produces results, not just activity. So embrace your obsessions, channel them, structure them, turn them into engines of progress. Because in the end, the people who change the world are not those with the fewest obsessions, but those who have learned to turn their obsessions into achievements. Do you know how many patents I hold? 1,093. But let me tell you something more important than that number. Every single one of those patents started as an idea that most people thought was impossible, an idea that critics said wouldn't work, an idea that experts dismissed, but I protected those ideas. I developed them. I turned them into reality. Your ideas are your intellectual property, not just the ones you've patented. Every single idea you have is an asset waiting to be developed. But here's what most people don't understand. Having ideas isn't enough. You need to protect them, nurture them, and most importantly, you need to believe in them when no one else does. I remember when I first proposed the idea of delivering electricity to people's homes. The skeptics were everywhere. Too dangerous, they said. too expensive, they argued. Nobody needs it, they claimed. If I had listened to them, if I had let their doubt infect my conviction, the world might have waited decades longer for electrical power distribution. Here's what I learned about protecting your ideas. First, you must understand that every great idea goes through 3 phases. Initially, people will tell you it's impossible. Then, they'll tell you it's impractical. Finally, when you succeed, they'll say it was obvious all along. Your job is to keep your idea alive through all 3 phases. But how do you protect an idea? Not just legally through patents, but mentally and emotionally? How do you keep your vision intact when the world is trying to tear it down? I developed what I call the Edison Idea Protection Protocol. First, document everything. I kept detailed notebooks of every idea, every experiment, every failure, and every success. This isn't just for legal protection, it's for mental protection. When you write down your ideas, when you detail your progress, you create a fortress around your vision that doubt cannot easily penetrate. Second, build a support system for your ideas. In my laboratory, I surrounded myself with people who understood my vision. Not yes men who agreed with everything, but people who could see the potential in what others called impossible. Your ideas need this kind of environment to grow. Third, and this is crucial, develop your idea in silence when necessary. Not every thought needs to be shared. Not every vision needs to be explained. Sometimes the best way to protect an idea is to develop it quietly until it's strong enough to withstand criticism. I remember working on the motion picture camera. I kept that project largely secret, not because I was afraid someone would steal it, but because I knew the idea needed time to develop without the weight of public skepticism. Some ideas are like photographs. They need darkness to develop. But protecting your ideas isn't just about keeping them safe. It's about making them stronger. Here's how I did it. For every major invention, I would write down every possible objection I could think of. Then, systematically, I would address each one. This wasn't just problem solving, it was idea strengthening. Think about your biggest idea right now, the one that excites you most, the one that scares you a little. Now ask yourself, have you protected it? Have you given it the mental and emotional fortification it needs to survive? Have you built the support system it requires to thrive? Here's a practical exercise I used. Take your core idea and write down every reason why it might fail. Every single one. Don't hold back. Then, next to each reason, write, "This is solvable," because it is. Every problem has a solution. Every obstacle can be overcome, but only if you protect your idea long enough to find the answers. You must also learn to distinguish between valuable criticism and toxic skepticism. When someone challenges your idea constructively, offering specific concerns or identifying real problems, that's valuable. When someone dismisses your idea outright, without understanding it, that's toxic. Learn to filter these responses differently. I developed what I called the idea immunity system. Just as your body develops immunity to disease, your mind must develop immunity to idea-killing influences. Criticism should make your ideas stronger, not weaker. Skepticism should sharpen your resolve, not dull it. Remember, every great idea starts as a fragile thing. It's vulnerable to doubt, to criticism, to dismissal. Your job is to protect it through this fragile stage, to nurture it until it's strong enough to stand on its own, until it's developed enough to prove itself. This isn't about being stubborn or ignoring reality. It's about giving your ideas the chance they deserve. It's about protecting them long enough for them to prove their worth. It's about believing in your vision when belief is all you have. Your ideas are your legacy. They're your contribution to the world. They deserve your protection. They deserve your belief. They deserve your relentless dedication to turning them into reality. So protect your ideas, nurture them, strengthen them, give them the time and space they need to develop. Because the ideas you protect today could be the innovations that change tomorrow. The laboratory isn't just a physical space. It's a mental state. When people visited my lab in Menlo Park, they saw the equipment, the experiments, the organized chaos of creation, but what they didn't see was more important. The mental laboratory, where every invention first took shape. Let me tell you about my concept of the mental laboratory. It's a space you create in your mind where possibilities are infinite and constraints are just variables to be manipulated. It's where you can test ideas before they ever touch physical reality. It's where failure costs nothing, but teaches everything. I spent more time in my mental laboratory than I did in my physical one. When I was working on the electric light, I would lie in bed at night running experiments in my mind. I would visualize different filament materials, different vacuum levels, different electrical currents. By the time I actually conducted a physical experiment, I had already run it dozens of times in my mental lab. But here's what most people don't understand about maintaining a mental laboratory. It requires discipline. Just as a physical lab needs regular maintenance, your mental lab needs consistent attention. You can't just visit it when inspiration strikes. You need to live there. I developed what I call the laboratory mindset. This means treating every moment as an opportunity for experimentation. Every conversation, every observation, every problem you encounter. These are all raw materials for your mental lab. The Salbi world becomes your research facility. Let me share with you the principles I use to maintain my mental laboratory. First, create dedicated time for deep thinking. I would often sit in my laboratory chair for hours just thinking through problems. My assistants knew not to disturb me during these sessions. This wasn't daydreaming. It was rigorous mental experimentation. Second, document everything. Your mental laboratory needs a record-keeping system. I kept notebooks everywhere, by my bed, in my pockets, on my workbench. When an idea or observation emerged from my mental lab, I captured it immediately. Ideas are like dreams. They fade quickly, if not recorded. Third, maintain experimental purity. In your mental lab, just as in a physical one, you must control your variables. When testing an idea, change only one element at a time. This applies to thought experiments just as much as physical ones. I remember spending weeks in my mental laboratory before building the first phonograph. I would visualize sound waves, imagine how they might be captured, consider different materials for recording. By the time I built the actual device, I had already solved many problems in my mind. Here's a crucial understanding. Your mental laboratory is portable. You can access it anywhere, anytime. Stuck in traffic? Run some thought experiments. Waiting in line? Test some hypotheses. Every moment is an opportunity to work in your lab. But, and this is important, you must keep your mental lab clean and organized. Just as a cluttered physical laboratory impedes work, a cluttered mind prevents clear thinking. I developed specific practices for maintaining mental clarity. Regular periods of solitude. You need quiet time to hear your own thoughts. I would often work late into the night when the world was still, and my mental lab was at its most productive. Systematic problem-solving protocols. In your mental lab, develop standard procedures for attacking problems. Mine was simple. Define the problem clearly, list all possible approaches, mentally test each one, document the results. Create mental models. I would build detailed mental models of how things worked. These became my testing grounds. When facing a new problem, I could run it through these models before touching any physical materials. Think about the biggest challenge you're facing right now. Have you taken it into your mental laboratory? Have you examined it from every angle? Have you run thought experiments on possible solutions? This is where breakthroughs begin. Let me give you a practical exercise. Choose one problem you're working on. Spend 30 minutes in your mental lab with it. No phone, no distractions, no physical tinkering. Just pure, focused thought experimentation. Write down everything that emerges. Your mental laboratory should be your most valued workspace. It's where impossible becomes possible, where failures cost nothing but teach everything, where your greatest ideas will first take shape. But remember, Just as a physical laboratory needs regular use to remain effective, your mental lab needs constant activity. You can't just visit it occasionally and expect results. You need to live there, work there, create there. This is why I say stay in the lab, not just the physical space where you work, but the mental space where you create. The more time you spend there, the more productive it becomes. The more you use it, the more powerful it grows. Your mental laboratory is your greatest asset. It's where every invention begins, where every solution emerges, where every breakthrough first appears. Keep it clean, keep it active, keep it productive. Because in the end, the greatest laboratory you'll ever have is the one between your ears. Use it, trust it, stay in it. This is where your future is being invented, one thought experiment at a time. Let me tell you about doubt, not your own doubt. We'll address that later. I want to tell you about the doubt of others, the skepticism, the criticism, the endless chorus of voices saying it can't be done. Because here's what I learned. Other people's doubt is actually fuel if you know how to use it. When I announced my intention to create an electric light system that would illuminate entire cities, the gas companies laughed. The newspapers mocked. The experts dismissed. Edison's folly, they called it. But while they were doubting, I was working. While they were mocking, I was experimenting. While they were dismissing, I was advancing. Here's what most people don't understand about doubt. It's not a wall, it's a compass. When people doubt your vision, they're actually showing you exactly where the boundaries of current thinking lie. And boundaries are meant to be pushed. I developed what I call the doubt conversion system. It's a method for turning skepticism into motivation, criticism into fuel. Here's how it works. First, you document every doubt, every criticism, every skeptical comment, not to dwell on them, but to use them as a checklist of problems to solve. When critics said electric light would be too expensive for practical use, I didn't argue. I made it my mission to reduce costs. When they said it wouldn't be safe, I didn't defend. I developed better insulation. Every doubt became a design specification. Every criticism became a challenge to overcome. But here's the key. You must work silently. The time for talk is not when people doubt you, it's when you've proven them wrong. I never wasted energy defending my ideas against skeptics. Instead, I poured that energy into my work. Let your results speak for themselves. I remember when I was developing the phonograph, people called it the talking machine, and they meant it as a joke. They couldn't conceive of a device that could capture and replay sound. But their inability to imagine it had no bearing on its possibility. While they were laughing, I was solving problems one by one. Here's what I want you to understand. The opinions of doubters are irrelevant to the laws of physics. Skepticism doesn't change what's possible. It only reveals the limitations in other people's thinking. Your job is not to convince the doubters. Your job is to prove them wrong through results. I developed specific practices for working through doubt. First, create a doubt-free zone in your mind. Just as my laboratory was a space for experimentation, I maintained a mental space where doubt, whether my own or others, was not allowed to enter. This is where the real work happens. Second, use doubt as market research. When people tell you something can't be done, they're actually telling you what problems you need to solve. Don't get defensive. Get curious. What exactly do they think? Is impossible? Those are your technical specifications. Third, maintain what I call productive silence. Don't waste energy arguing with doubters. Don't try to convince skeptics. Save that energy for your work. The best response to doubt is not argument, it's achievement. Think about what people are doubting in your life right now. What are they saying can't be done? What are they claiming is impossible? Now, instead of feeling discouraged, get methodical. Turn each doubt into a specific problem to solve. Here's a practical exercise I used. Take the 3 biggest doubts people have expressed about your current project. Write them down. Now, under each one, write, "This is solvable," because it is. Every doubt is just a problem waiting for a solution. Remember, while others doubt, you work. While others question, you experiment. While others wait to see if it's possible, you make it possible. This is the inventor's way. This is the achiever's path. But, and this is crucial, don't let your drive to prove doubters wrong become your primary motivation. That's a trap. Work to solve the problem, not to silence the critics. Work to achieve your vision, not to prove others wrong. I never invented anything just to prove critics wrong. I invented to solve problems, to improve lives, to advance human capability. The fact that it proved doubters wrong was just a satisfying side effect. Your work, your progress, your achievements, these are your answers to doubt. Not words, not arguments, not explanations. Results. While others doubt, you work. While others question, you create. While others say it can't be done, you do it. This is how you handle doubt. Not by fighting it, not by fearing it, but by using it. Turn it into fuel. Transform it into specifications. Let it reveal exactly what you need to prove possible. Because in the end, the greatest satisfaction isn't in proving doubters wrong, it's in proving yourself right. It's in seeing your vision become reality, while those who said it couldn't be done wonder how they could have been so short-sighted. So let them doubt. Let them question. Let them dismiss. Your job isn't to convince them. Your job is to prove them wrong through your work. Keep experimenting. Keep advancing. Keep achieving. The doubters will always be there. But while they're doubting, you'll be working. And in the end, work wins. Results speak louder than skepticism. Achievement silences doubt more effectively than any argument ever could. They called me a genius. I always found that amusing, because I knew something they didn't. Genius had very little to do with my success. What they called genius was actually just persistent, methodical, relentless effort. Let me tell you why. Grit will always outweigh raw intelligence. I've known brilliant men who accomplished nothing. I've worked with natural talents who never reached their potential. And I've watched seemingly average individuals achieve extraordinary things through sheer, unwavering persistence. The difference wasn't in their minds. It was in their methods. When I started my career as a telegraph operator, I wasn't the smartest in the room. But I was the one who stayed after hours, practicing, experimenting, looking for ways to improve the system. I wasn't trying to be a genius. I was trying to be thorough. This is the first lesson about grit. It's not about intensity, it's about consistency. Let me tell you about my approach to problem solving. While others would look for clever solutions, I would simply try every possible combination until I found what worked. They called this genius. I called it persistence. When I was developing the storage battery, I conducted over 50,000 experiments. Was this genius? No, this was grit. Here's what most people don't understand about the relationship between genius and grit. Genius tells you what might work. Grit tells you what actually works. Genius gives you ideas. Grit turns those ideas into reality. Genius without grit is like a car without fuel, impressive, but immobile. I developed what I call the persistence protocol. It's a system for outworking any problem, regardless of your natural abilities. First principle: break down large challenges into small, manageable experiments. Second principle: document everything, learn from every attempt. Third principle: keep pushing until you find what works. But here's the key. Grit isn't just about working hard, it's about working systematically. When I was developing the light bulb, I didn't just try harder than everyone else, I tried more methodically. I tested every possible material for the eye filament. I documented every result. I learned from every failure. Think about the most persistent person you know. Are they the most naturally talented? Probably not. But they're likely the most successful. Why? Because grit has a compound effect that talent can't match. Every hour of persistent effort builds on every previous hour. Talent without this compound effect remains potential rather than achievement. I remember when a young reporter asked me about genius, I told him, Genius is 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. He thought I was being modest. I wasn't. I was being precise. The ratio really is that dramatic. Here's a truth that most people don't want to hear. Natural talent often works against you. Why? Because talented people often rely on their gifts rather than developing their grit. They expect their intelligence to solve problems that can only be solved through persistent effort. Let me give you a practical example. When I was working on the phonograph, I wasn't trying to be clever. I was methodically testing every possible way to capture and reproduce sound. Others might have looked for an elegant solution. I looked for a working solution. Grit doesn't care about elegance. It cares about results. Here's how you can apply this principle. Stop trying to be the smartest person in the room. Start trying to be the most persistent. Stop looking for clever shortcuts. Start building systematic approaches. Stop relying on talent. Start developing grit. I develop specific practices for building grit. First, create daily challenges. Not big, impressive challenges. Small, consistent ones. Every day in my laboratory, we had specific targets to hit. This wasn't about dramatic breakthroughs. It was about persistent progress. Second, document everything. Grit without documentation is just busy work. Keep records of your attempts, your failures, your adjustments. This turns raw persistence into methodical progress. Third, build what I call failure resilience. Expect things not to work. Plan for setbacks. The grittier you become, the more you understand that failure is just part of the process. Think about your current challenges. Are you trying to solve them with cleverness or with persistence? Are you looking for brilliant insights or building systematic approaches? Are you relying on talent or developing grit? Remember, every major breakthrough in history came not from a moment of genius, but from hours, days, years of persistent effort. The light bulb wasn't invented in a flash of brilliance. It was built through thousands of methodical experiments. Your grit is your greatest asset. Not your intelligence, not your talent, not your natural abilities, your capacity to persist systematically toward your goals. This is what will separate you from those who dream and those who achieve. But, and this is crucial, grit must be focused. Blind persistence is just stubbornness. Your grit needs direction, methodology, purpose. This is why documentation is so important. This is why systematic approaches matter. This is why methodical effort beats random intensity. Don't wish for more talent. Build more grit. Don't hope for genius insights. Develop persistent methods. Don't wait for inspiration. Create systems for consistent progress. Because in the end, it's not the genius who changes the world. It's the person who refuses to stop until they succeed. It's not the naturally gifted who make breakthroughs. It's the one who keeps pushing when others quit. Let them call you whatever they want. Let them attribute your success to genius, to talent, to luck. You'll know the truth. It was grit that got you there. It was persistence. That made the difference. It was your refusal to quit that turned possibility into reality. If you wait until you feel completely ready, you'll never create anything. Let me tell you something about readiness. It's a myth, a dangerous one that has killed more great ideas than failure ever did. When I started working on the electrics light system, do you think I felt ready? I had no idea if it would work. No one had ever built a complete electrical distribution system before. There was no blueprint, no guide, no precedent. But I didn't wait to feel ready. I started working. Here's what most people don't understand about readiness. It's not a feeling you wait for. It's a state you create through action. Every great invention, every significant breakthrough, every meaningful advancement began before its creator felt fully prepared. I developed what I call the Start Now protocol. It's simple but powerful. Identify what you can do today with what you have where you are. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Don't wait for complete knowledge. Don't wait for absolute certainty. Start with what's available. Let me tell you about the first phonograph. It was crude, basic, almost primitive by later standards, but it worked. If I had waited until I had the perfect design, if I had waited until I felt completely confident, someone else would have invented it first. The imperfect solution you create today is better than the perfect solution you never start. But here's the key. Starting before you're ready doesn't mean starting blindly. It means starting strategically with what you have. When I began work on the electric light, I didn't have all the answers, but I had questions. I had hypotheses. I had a method for finding answers. That's all you need to begin. Think about what you're waiting to start right now. What project, what idea, what venture are you postponing until you feel more ready? Now ask yourself, what small step could you take today with what you have right now? I remember when people asked me how I knew the electric light would work before I started. The truth? I didn't. I had no guarantee, but I knew that waiting for certainty would ensure failure. The only way to find out was to begin, to experiment, to try. Here's a truth that most people avoid. The feeling of readiness is often just disguised fear. Fear of failure, fear of criticism, fear of the unknown. But here's what I learned. Action cures fear better than contemplation ever could. I developed specific practices for starting before feeling ready. First, create what I call minimum viable experiments. Don't try to solve the entire problem at once. Start with the smallest possible test that could teach you something useful. When I was working on the light bulb, I didn't begin by trying to illuminate a city. I started with one small filament in one small bulb. Second, embrace imperfect beginnings. Your first attempts will be crude. They should be. If your first version isn't embarrassingly simple, you've waited too long to begin. The first phonograph sounded terrible by today's standards, but it proved the concept was possible. Third, build momentum through small wins. Don't wait to take big steps. Take small steps consistently. When I was developing the storage battery, each day's experiments built momentum. Even when they failed, movement creates momentum. Momentum creates progress. Think about your biggest goal right now, the one you've been waiting to feel ready for. Now, what's the smallest step you could take toward it today? Not next week, not when conditions are perfect. Today, with what you have, where you are. Here's a practical exercise I used. List everything you think you need to begin. Now, cross off everything that isn't absolutely essential. What's left? That's your starting point. Begin there, now. The rest you can acquire as you go. Remember, readiness is a myth that protects you from nothing but success. It's a comfort zone that keeps you safe from growth, shields you from achievement, guards you from progress. Break out of it. But, and this is crucial, starting before you're ready doesn't mean starting recklessly. It means starting resourcefully. Use what you have. Learn as you go. Adjust based on results. This is how real progress happens. I never felt completely ready for any of my major inventions. Not the light bulb, not the phonograph, not the motion picture camera. If I had waited for readiness, I would still be waiting. Instead, I started with what I had and built from there. Your greatest enemy isn't lack of preparation, it's delay. Every day you wait for perfect conditions is a day of potential progress lost. Every moment you spend waiting to feel ready is a moment you could have spent creating, building, advancing. This is why I say, don't wait to feel ready. Start now. Start small. Start with what you have, but start. Because the perfect moment you're waiting for doesn't exist, the perfect conditions you're hoping for won't arrive. The feeling of complete readiness you're seeking is an illusion. The only way to become ready is to begin before you feel ready. The only way to build confidence is to take action before you feel confident. The only way to create something significant is to start with something small. Your time is now. Your place is here. Your tools or whatever you have at hand, don't wait for more. Don't wait for better. Don't wait for perfect. Start with what you have. Begin where you are. Take action before you feel ready, because in the end, The only true measure of readiness is action. The only real sign of preparation is progress. The only genuine indicator of capability is creation. Stop waiting. Start working. The time will never be perfect, but it will always be now. Time is not a river that flows past you. It's raw material waiting to be shaped. Let me tell you how I learned to convert time into power, to transform hours into achievements, to turn minutes into milestones. When I first set up my laboratory in Menlo Park, I made a radical decision. I would treat time differently than everyone else. While others saw time as something to spend, I saw it as something to invest. While they watched the clock, I worked it. Here's what most people don't understand about time. It's not about management. It's about conversion. Every hour can be converted into progress. Every minute can be transformed into momentum. Every second contains the seed of something significant. I developed what I call the time conversion system. It's a method for turning raw time into tangible results. First principle, all time is potential energy. Second principle, energy becomes power through focused application. Third principle, power creates progress through persistent use. Let me tell you about my insomnia squad. These were researchers who would work with me through the night, not because we had to, but because we understood something crucial. Time doesn't care when you use it. 3 in the morning is just as valuable as 3 in the afternoon if you know how to convert it into progress. But here's the key. It's not about working longer, it's about working deeper. When I was developing the electric light, I didn't just put in more hours. I made every hour count more. I developed systems for maximizing the value of every minute, every experiment, every attempt. Think about how you're using your time right now. Are you spending it, or are you investing it? Are you watching it pass, or are you converting it into progress? The difference between these approaches will determine everything about your results. I remember when a young inventor asked me about my work schedule. He wanted to know how many hours I put in. I told him it wasn't about the hours. It was about what you put into the hours. One focused hour can accomplish more than days of distracted effort. Here's a truth that most people avoid. Time is neutral. It becomes valuable or wasteful based on how you convert it. I developed specific practices for turning time into power. First, create what I call compound time blocks. Just as money compounds through intelligent investment, time compounds through focused application. When I was working on a problem, I would block out hours, sometimes days, of uninterrupted focus. Each minute built on the previous one. Second, eliminate time leaks. In my laboratory, we tracked everything, every experiment, every result, every use of time. Not to be rigid, but to be aware. You can't convert time you're not conscious of using. Third, develop time momentum. Start each day with your most important work. Build momentum early. Let each hour push the next one forward. In my laboratory, we would often solve problems faster in the later hours of a session because we had built such powerful momentum. Think about your most productive days. What made them different? I'll tell you, it wasn't that you had more time. It was that you converted your time more effectively. You turned hours into achievement more efficiently. Here's a practical exercise. I used, for 1 week, document exactly how you use each hour, not to judge, but to understand. Where is your time going? More importantly, what is it becoming? Is it turning into progress, or is it just passing? Remember, time is your most precious raw material, more valuable than money, more crucial than resources, more important than connections. Because without the ability to convert time into achievement, nothing else matters. But, and this is essential, converting time into power requires system and strategy. It's not about working frantically. It's about working intelligently. It's not about filling every moment. It's about making every moment fill your goals. I never looked at a clock and saw time passing. I saw opportunities waiting. I never counted hours. I measured progress. I never watched time flow by. I captured it and converted it into invention, into innovation, into achievement. Your time is not just passing, it's waiting to be converted. Every minute holds potential. Every hour contains possibility. Every day offers opportunity for transformation. But only if you know how to convert it. This is why I say, don't manage time. Convert it. Don't spend time. Invest it. Don't watch time. Work it. Because time is not just duration, it's raw. Material waiting to be shaped into something significant. The difference between achievement and mediocrity often lies not in how much time you have, but in how you convert the time you have. Everyone gets 24 hours, but not everyone turns those hours into power. Not everyone converts that time into progress. Start seeing your time differently. Stop thinking about how to spend it. Start thinking about how to convert it. Stop watching it pass. Start transforming it into power. Because in the end, it's not about having time. It's about what you create with the time you have. Your time is your power source. Your hours are your raw material. Your minutes are your opportunities. Convert them wisely, transform them purposefully, turn them into the achievement they have the potential to become. Most people think endurance is something you're born with. They believe it's a fixed trait, like height or eye color. But I'm here to tell you something different. Endurance is a muscle. And like any muscle, it grows stronger with systematic training. When I first started my career as an inventor, I couldn't work for more than a few hours without feeling exhausted. But over time, I developed what I call mental stamina, the ability to persist through challenges that would break most people. This wasn't natural ability. This was trained endurance. Here's what most people don't understand about endurance. It's not about pushing through pain. It's about expanding your capacity. Just as a weightlifter gradually increases their load, you can systematically increase your ability to persist through challenges. I developed what I call the endurance training protocol. First principle, start where you are, not where you think you should be. Second principle, increase load gradually but consistently. Third principle, recovery is part of growth, not a sign of weakness. Let me tell you about the time I worked for 3 days straight on the phonograph. This wasn't something I could have done when I first started. I had built up to it, trained for it, prepared my mind and body for extended periods of focused work. The capacity for endurance isn't fixed, it's cultivated. But here's the key. Building endurance isn't about pushing yourself to exhaustion. It's about systematic progression. When I was working on the electric light, I didn't start with 20-hour days. I built up to them, gradually extending my capacity for focused work. Think about your current endurance limits. How long can you work on a challenging problem before your mind starts to wander? How many setbacks can you handle before you feel like quitting? These aren't fixed limits. They're current capacities waiting to be expanded. I remember when young, inventors would visit my laboratory, eager to make their mark. They would try to match my work schedule immediately, pushing themselves to exhaustion. I would tell them, start where you are. Build your endurance systematically. Grow your capacity gradually. Here's a truth that most people avoid. Mental. Fatigue is often more about training than talent. I developed specific practices for building mental endurance. First, create what I call endurance benchmarks. Start by measuring your current capacity for focused work. How long can you maintain concentration? How many failures can you handle? These become your baseline for improvement. Second, implement progressive loading. Just as a muscle needs increasing resistance to grow stronger, your endurance needs progressive challenges. Each week, extend your focused work period slightly. Each project handles slightly more complexity. Third, develop recovery protocols. In my laboratory, we didn't work continuously without breaks. We worked in focused bursts, followed by strategic recovery. This wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. Recovery is when endurance grows. Think about your biggest challenges right now. Are you approaching them with the mindset of building endurance, or are you trying to sprint through a marathon? Endurance isn't about speed, it's about sustainable progress. Here's a practical exercise I used. Start with your current maximum focused work period. Let's say it's 1 hour. Work that hour with complete concentration. Then, next week, make. It's 70 minutes. The week after, 80. Small systematic increases build lasting endurance. Remember, endurance isn't just about lasting longer. It's about maintaining quality longer. When I was developing the storage battery, it wasn't just about working more hours. It was about maintaining high-quality thinking and experimentation through those hours. But, and this is crucial, building endurance requires patience. You won't double your capacity overnight. You won't suddenly be able to work 20-hour days. This is gradual progression, systematic development, intentional growth. I never met a problem I couldn't outlast, not because I was naturally more enduring than others, but because I had systematically built my capacity to persist. Every challenge became an opportunity to build greater endurance. Your endurance is not fixed. Your capacity is not limited. Your ability to persist is not predetermined. These are all muscles waiting to be developed, capacities waiting to be expanded, strengths waiting to be built. This is why I say, treat endurance like a muscle. Train it systematically, progress gradually, recover strategically. Because in the end, it's not about who has the most natural stamina. It's about who has built the greatest capacity to persist. The difference between success and failure often lies not in initial capacity, but in built endurance. Not in natural stamina, but in developed persistence. Not in where you start, but in how systematically you build your ability to continue. Your endurance is your edge. Your capacity to persist is your competitive advantage. Your ability to continue when others quit is your path to breakthrough. But only if you treat it like a muscle, only if you train it systematically, only if you build it intentionally. Start where you are, build gradually, progress systematically, recover strategically. Your endurance is waiting to be developed. Your capacity is ready to be expanded. Your persistence is prepared to be strengthened. Because in the end, the greatest achievements don't go to those with the most natural endurance. They go to those who have systematically built their capacity to persist, to continue, to endure, until breakthrough becomes inevitable. Noise isn't just sound. It's anything that distracts you from your purpose. In my laboratory at Menlo Park, I didn't just create inventions, I created silence. Not physical silence, but the kind of silence that allows deep work to happen. Let me show you how to isolate the noise that's keeping you from your greatest achievements. When I was developing the electric light, I faced 3 kinds of noise: physical distractions, mental interference, and emotional static. Each required its own isolation strategy. Each demanded its own solution. Because here's what I learned: you can't create in chaos, you can't innovate in interference, you can't achieve in agitation. Here's what most people don't understand about noise. It's not just external. The most dangerous distractions aren't the ones you can hear, they're the ones you can't. The doubt in your mind, the fear in your heart, the uncertainty that clouds your judgment. These are the noises that truly need isolation. I developed what I call the Noise Isolation Protocol. First principle: identify your noise sources, physical, mental, and emotional. Second principle: create isolation strategies for each type. Third principle: maintain your quiet space with the same dedication you maintain your workspace. Let me tell you about my solution for physical noise. In my laboratory, I created what I called focus zones, areas where no unnecessary conversation was allowed, no unnecessary movement permitted. Not because I was a tyrant, but because I understood that physical quiet creates mental space. But here's the key: isolation isn't about shutting everything out, it's about controlling what gets in. When I was working on the phonograph, I needed to hear certain sounds with perfect clarity. The trick wasn't complete silence, it was selective silence. The ability to choose what you let into your awareness. Think about the noise in your life right now. The phone notifications, the endless emails, the constant demands for attention. These aren't just interruptions. They're thieves. They're stealing your potential for deep work, for meaningful progress, for significant achievement. I remember when young inventors would come to my laboratory, full of energy but unable to focus. They couldn't understand why they weren't making progress. The answer was simple. They hadn't learned to isolate the noise. They were trying to create in chaos. Here's a truth that most people avoid. Your ability to isolate noise directly determines your ability to achieve. I developed specific practices for noise isolation. First, create what I call noise maps. Document everything that interrupts your focus, every distraction, every interference, every source of mental and emotional static. You can't isolate what you haven't identified. Second, implement progressive isolation. Don't try to eliminate all noise at once. Start with the most disruptive sources. Create solutions for them. Then move to the next level. This is systematic silence creation. Third, develop maintenance protocols. Quiet spaces don't stay quiet on their own. They need protection. They need maintenance. In my laboratory, we had strict rules about maintaining our focus zones. Not because rules matter, but because results matter. Think about your workspace, your mental space, your emotional space. How much noise are you allowing in? How much chaos are you tolerating? How much interference are you accepting as normal? These are not fixed conditions. They're choices. Here's a practical exercise I used. Spend one day documenting every interruption to your focus, every single one. Physical distractions, mental wanderings, emotional disturbances. This becomes your noise elimination checklist. Remember, noise isolation isn't about becoming a hermit. It's about creating the conditions for deep work. When I needed to think through a complex problem, I would often sit in my laboratory chair for hours, completely still, not because I loved sitting still, but because I understood that physical stillness creates mental clarity. But, and this is crucial, isolation must be strategic. Some noise contains valuable information. Some interruptions bring important insights. The goal isn't to eliminate all input, it's to control input, to choose what gets through your filters. I never achieved anything significant in chaos. Every major breakthrough, every meaningful advance, every significant invention came from a space of controlled focus. Not perfect silence, but strategic silence. Not complete isolation, but purposeful isolation. Your ability to isolate noise is your ability to achieve. Your capacity to create quiet is your capacity to create value. Your skill at maintaining focus is your skill at maintaining progress. These aren't separate abilities. They're the same thing seen from different angles. This is why I say, isolate the noise. Not some of it, not most of it, all of it. Create your quiet space. Protect it, maintain it. Because in the end, the quality of your achievement will mirror the quality of your focus. The difference between mediocrity and excellence often lies not in talent or effort, but in the ability to isolate noise, not in how hard you work, but in how well you can focus, not in how many hours you put in, but in how many focused hours you create. Your quiet space is your creation space. Your isolation is your innovation zone. Your ability to control noise is your ability to control outcomes, but only if you're systematic about it, only if you're strategic about it, only if you're serious about it. Start mapping your noise. Start creating your quiet. Start building your focus zones. Your greatest achievements are waiting in the silence. Your biggest breakthroughs will come in the quiet. Your most significant progress will happen in the space you create by isolating the noise. When you're stuck, work harder. Not blindly, not frantically, but systematically and relentlessly. Let me tell you about the power of outworking a problem, about the art of applying persistent, methodical effort until no problem can resist your progress. There was a time during the development of the light bulb when we had tried over 6,000 different materials for the filament, 6,000 failures. Most people would have quit. Most people would have said it was impossible. But here's what I understood. Problems don't resist effort forever. They yield to persistent, intelligent pressure. Here's what most people don't understand about problem solving. It's not about having brilliant insights. It's about applying consistent pressure until the solution reveals itself. Every problem has a breaking point. Every challenge has a threshold where it transforms from impossible to inevitable. I developed what I call the pressure application protocol. First principle, apply consistent, methodical pressure to the problem. Second principle, document every attempt, every result, every variation. Third principle, increase pressure systematically until breakthrough occurs. Let me tell you about my approach to the storage battery. For years, the problem seemed unsolvable, but instead of waiting for inspiration, instead of hoping for a breakthrough, we simply worked harder. We ran more experiments. We tested more combinations. We applied more pressure. But here's the key: working harder doesn't mean working desperately. It means working systematically. When I say outwork the problem, I'm not talking about blind effort. I'm talking about methodical, persistent, intelligent pressure applied consistently over time. Think about the hardest problem you're facing right now. Have you really outworked it? Have you applied systematic, persistent pressure? Or have you just poked at it occasionally, hoping for a breakthrough? I remember when a young inventor came to me, frustrated with a technical challenge he couldn't solve. He had tried everything he could think of, he said. I asked him how many experiments he had run. 20 or 30, he replied. I smiled and told him about the 9,000 experiments we ran for the light bulb. Here's a truth that most people avoid. Most problems yield not to brilliance, but to persistent effort. I developed specific practices for outworking problems. First, create what I call pressure maps. Document exactly where you're applying effort, how much, and with what results. This isn't just record keeping, it's strategic planning. You can't outwork a problem you haven't mapped. Second, implement systematic escalation. Don't just work harder intelligently. Increase effort methodically. Test variations systematically. This isn't about random effort, it's about strategic pressure. Third, develop persistence protocols. In my laboratory, we had systems for maintaining effort over long periods. We didn't rely on motivation or inspiration. We relied on method and persistence. Think about how you approach difficult problems. Do you give up when initial efforts fail? Do you wait for inspiration? Or do you systematically increase pressure until breakthrough occurs? Here's a practical exercise I used. Take your current biggest challenge. Create a grid of every possible variation, every potential solution, every conceivable approach. Then start working through them systematically, not randomly, not hoping for luck. Systematically. Remember, no problem can withstand infinite persistent pressure. When we were developing the phonograph, every technical challenge eventually yielded, not because we were smarter than the problems, but because we were more persistent than the obstacles. But, and this is crucial, outworking a problem isn't about brute force. It's about intelligent persistence. It's about systematic pressure. It's about methodical effort applied strategically over time. I never met a problem I couldn't outwork, not because I was smarter than others, but because I was willing to apply more systematic pressure for a longer time. Every major invention came not from a moment of inspiration, but from a period of persistent, methodical effort. Your ability to outwork problems is your ability to achieve. Your capacity to apply persistent pressure is your capacity to create breakthroughs. Your willingness to systematically increase effort is your willingness to succeed. This is why I say, outwork the problem, not some of it, not most of it, all of it. Apply pressure systematically, increase effort methodically, maintain persistence strategically, because in the end, every problem has its breaking point. The difference between success and failure often lies not in talent or luck, but in the willingness to outwork the problem. Not in how smart you are, but in how systematically persistent you can be. Not in how many brilliant ideas you have, but in how much methodical pressure you can apply. Your persistence is your power. Your systematic effort is your strength. Your willingness to outwork problems is your path to breakthrough. But only if you're methodical about it, only if you're systematic about it, only if you're persistent about it. Start mapping your problems. Start applying systematic pressure. Start increasing methodical effort. Your breakthroughs are waiting on the other side of persistent work. Your solutions will emerge through systematic effort. Your achievements will come through outworking every problem that stands between you and your goals. Comfort is a silent killer. It doesn't announce itself like failure. It doesn't challenge you like opposition. It simply lulls you into a state of accepted mediocrity. Let me tell you why comfort is the most dangerous enemy you'll ever face. When I first achieved success with the stock ticker, I could have stopped. I had enough money to live comfortably. I had respect in my field. I had what most would consider a successful career. But I understood something crucial. Comfort is not your friend. It's your enemy disguised as a friend. Here's what most people don't understand about comfort. It's not a reward for success. It's a threat to future achievement. Every time you get comfortable, you start dying a little. Not physically, but in terms of your potential, your innovation, your ability to push. Boundaries. I developed what I call the discomfort dynamics protocol. First principle. Identify areas of comfort that are limiting your growth. Second principle. Systematically disrupt these comfort zones. Third principle. Create new challenges before old ones become comfortable. Let me tell you about my approach to comfort. In my laboratory, whenever we solved a problem, whenever we achieved a goal, we immediately set a harder one. Not because we were driven by blind ambition, but because we understood that comfort is the enemy of progress. But here's the key. Avoiding comfort doesn't mean living in constant chaos. It means maintaining a strategic level of challenge. When I was working on the electric light system, each success didn't lead to relaxation. It led to a bigger challenge. Not randomly, but systematically. Think about where you're comfortable right now. In your work, in your thinking, in your daily routines. These comfortable spaces aren't protecting you, they're limiting you. They're not supporting your growth, they're preventing it. I remember when one of my assistants mastered a particular experimental technique. He was proud, as he should have been. But then he made a crucial mistake. He kept doing just that technique, staying in his comfort zone. I had to shake him out of it, push him toward new challenges. Here's a truth that most people avoid. Your comfort zones are actually your limitation zones. I developed specific practices for fighting comfort. First, create what I call comfort maps. Document every area where you feel completely at ease, completely secure, completely unchallenged. These are not achievements to celebrate. These are warnings to heed. Second, implement systematic disruption. Don't wait for challenges to find you. Create them, seek them, pursue them. In my laboratory, we would intentionally take on problems that seemed impossible, not despite their difficulty, but because of it. Third, develop discomfort protocols. Regular routines for pushing beyond your comfort zones. Daily practices for challenging your limitations. In my work, every day had to contain something that pushed us beyond our current capabilities. Think about your recent achievements. Have they made you comfortable? Have they led you to relax? Have they become excuses for slowing down? This is the moment when comfort becomes dangerous. Here's a practical exercise I used. Every week, identify one comfortable routine, one mastered skill, one secure position. Then deliberately disrupt it, not to create chaos, but to create growth, not to destroy progress, but to ensure it continues. Remember, comfort is not your friend. When we were developing the motion picture camera, every technical success could have been a stopping point. Every achievement could have been an excuse to rest. But real innovation happens beyond comfort. But, and this is crucial, fighting. Comfort isn't about making yourself miserable. It's about maintaining the productive discomfort that drives growth. It's about staying in what I call the innovation zone, that space between paralyzing challenge and deadening comfort. I never met a comfort zone I couldn't disrupt. Not because I enjoyed discomfort, but because I understood its necessity. Every major breakthrough in my career came from pushing beyond comfortable limitations, from challenging accepted boundaries, from refusing to rest in achievement. Your comfort zones are your growth barriers. Your areas of ease are your areas of limitation. Your secure spaces are your stagnation spaces, but only if you let them be, only if you surrender to their seductive call. This is why I say, never surrender to comfort, not for a day, not for a moment, not for any achievement. Keep pushing, keep challenging, keep disrupting your own comfort zones, because in the end, comfort is just another word for surrender. The difference between continuous achievement and occasional success often lies not in talent or opportunity, but in your relationship with comfort. Not in how much you can do, but in how much you're willing to disrupt your own comfort to do more. Your discomfort is your ally. Your challenges are your opportunities. Your willingness to push beyond comfort is your path to extraordinary achievement. But only if you're systematic about it. Only if you're strategic about it. Only if you're serious about it. Start mapping your comfort zones. Start disrupting your routines. Start challenging your limitations. Your next level of achievement lies beyond your current comfort. Your next breakthrough waits outside your comfort zone. Your next innovation exists in the space where comfort fears to tread, because in the end, the most dangerous words in the world are, "I'm comfortable." The most limiting phrase is, "This is good enough." The most devastating surrender is the surrender to comfort. Don't let it happen to you. Keep pushing, keep challenging, keep growing. Rejection isn't a wall, it's a door. Every time you're rejected, every time you're dismissed, every time you're told it can't be done, you're being handed an opportunity, not for revenge, not for proving others wrong, but for reinvention. When the scientific community rejected my first phonograph as impossible, I didn't get discouraged. I got curious. What were they seeing that I wasn't? What could I improve? How could I make it undeniable? Rejection became my roadmap for reinvention. Here's what most people don't understand about rejection. It's not personal. It's informational. Every rejection contains data. Every dismissal holds insights. Every no carries the seeds of your next evolution. I developed what I call the rejection conversion protocol. First principle, extract the information hidden in every rejection. Second principle, convert that information into action points. Third principle, use these points to fuel systematic reinvention. Let me tell you about the time my electric light system was dismissed as impractical for general use. Instead of defending my current design, I used that rejection to completely reinvent the system. I examined every component, questioned every assumption, rebuilt from the ground up. But here's the key. Reinvention isn't about reaction. It's about reconstruction. When my storage battery faced skepticism, I didn't just try to prove critics wrong. I went back to fundamentals. I reimagined the entire approach. This wasn't about proving. It was about improving. Think about your recent rejections, the proposals declined, the ideas dismissed, the efforts criticized. Have you truly mined them for information? Have you used them as fuel for reinvention? I remember when a potential investor told me my ideas for electrical distribution were too ambitious. Most would have scaled back their vision. Instead, I used that rejection to reinvent my entire approach. Not to be less ambitious, but to be more systematic. Here's a truth that most people avoid. Rejection is often feedback in disguise. I developed specific practices for channeling rejection into reinvention. First, create what I call rejection maps. Document every criticism, every dismissal, every no. Not to dwell on them, but to dissect them. What are they really telling you? What can you learn from them? Second, implement systematic reinvention. Don't just make minor adjustments. Use rejection as an opportunity for fundamental reimagining. In my laboratory, major rejections led to Complete system overhauls, not out of spite, but out of strategy. Third, develop reinvention protocols, regular practices for turning rejection into reconstruction, systematic approaches for converting criticism into creation. When my ideas were rejected, I had a step-by-step process for using that rejection as fuel for reinvention. Think about your approach to rejection. Do you defend? Do you retreat? Or do you use it as a launch pad for reinvention? The difference defines your path to breakthrough. Here's a practical exercise I used. Take your most recent significant rejection. List every criticism, every doubt, every concern. Now, beside each one, write, "This is showing me what to reinvent." Because it is, remember, rejection isn't your enemy. It's your ally in disguise. When we were developing the motion picture camera, every technical rejection, every skeptical response, every dismissive expert helped us refine and reinvent our approach. But, and this is crucial, reinvention must be strategic. Don't just change for the sake of change. Use rejection as a guide for systematic reconstruction. Let criticism show you exactly what needs reinvention. I never received a rejection that didn't lead to improvement. Not because the rejection was always right, but because I refused to waste its energy. Every no became fuel for reinvention. Every dismissal sparked reconstruction. Every criticism catalyzed creation. Your rejections are your reinvention fuel. Your dismissals are your development opportunities. Your critics are unknowingly mapping your path to breakthrough. But only if you channel them correctly. Only if you convert them strategically. This is why I say, channel rejection into reinvention. Don't waste energy fighting it. Don't spend time defending against it. Use it. Convert it. Transform it into the force that drives your next evolution. The difference between being defeated by rejection and being driven by it often lies not in the rejection itself, but in your response to it. Not in how many times you're rejected, but in how many times you use rejection as fuel for reinvention. Your rejections are your roadmap. Your dismissals are your directions. Your critics are your unwitting collaborators in creation. But only if you're systematic about it. Only if you're strategic about it. Only if you're serious about it. Start mapping your rejections. Start planning your reinventions. Start converting criticism into creation. Your next breakthrough lies on the other side of rejection. Your next innovation waits beyond dismissal. Your next evolution emerges through reinvention. Because in the end, rejection is just the beginning. Every no is an opportunity for a better yes. Every dismissal is a chance for development. Every criticism is a call for creation. Don't waste them. Use them. Convert them. Transform them into the fuel that powers your reinvention. Everything we've discussed, every principle, every protocol, every practice, comes down to this. You must build a machine inside you, not a cold, mechanical thing, but a living system of habits, protocols, and practices that produces results, with the reliability of a well-engineered device. When I built my first laboratory at Menlo Park, people called it an invention factory. But the real factory wasn't the building. It was the mental machine I had built inside myself. The systematic approach to problems, the methodical pursuit of solutions, the relentless drive for results, these formed an internal engine that powered everything else. Here's what most people don't understand about success. It's not about moments of inspiration. It's about creating a reliable system for generating results. Your mind must become a machine that takes in challenges and produces solutions, that consumes problems and generates progress. I developed what I call the internal machine protocol. First principle, build systematic approaches to every challenge. Second principle, create reliable processes for generating solutions. Third principle, maintain and upgrade your mental machinery constantly. Let me tell you about my approach to invention. It wasn't random. It wasn't based on sudden insights. It was a machine-like process of systematic experimentation, methodical documentation, and relentless iteration. This wasn't just a way of working. It was a way of thinking. But here's the key. Building this internal machine isn't about becoming inhuman. It's about becoming reliably effective. When I was working on my greatest inventions, it wasn't brilliant flashes of insight that produced results. It was the methodical, machine-like persistence of systematic effort. Think about your current approach to challenges. Is it systematic? Is it reliable? Is it machine-like in its consistency? Or is it based on moods, moments, and sporadic bursts of effort? I remember when young inventors would ask me the secret to success. They were looking for a moment of revelation, a flash of inspiration. Instead, I would show them my notebooks, my experimental protocols, my systematic approaches. Build this machine inside you, I would tell them. Here's a truth that most people avoid. Consistent success requires systematic processes. I developed specific practices for building the internal machine. First, create what I call operating protocols, systematic approaches to every type of challenge you face. Not rigid rules, but reliable processes that consistently generate results. Second, implement quality control. Just as a machine needs maintenance, your internal systems need regulars, evaluation, and adjustment. In my work, we constantly refined our approaches, upgraded our methods, improved our processes. Third, develop performance metrics. A machine without measurements is just motion without progress. I tracked everything: experiments, results, improvements, setbacks. This wasn't just record-keeping, it was system optimization. Think about how you approach your work. Are you operating systematically? Have you built reliable processes? Have you created internal protocols that consistently generate results? Here's a practical exercise I used. Document your current approach to solving problems. Every step, every decision point, every protocol. Now look for ways to make it more systematic, more reliable, more machine-like in its consistency. Remember, your mind is the most sophisticated machine ever created. But like any machine, it needs proper programming. When we were developing the electric light system, it wasn't just about the physical components, it was about having systematic approaches to every challenge. But, and this is crucial, building this internal machine isn't about becoming rigid or inflexible. It's about creating reliable systems that free your creativity by handling the routine aspects of achievement automatically. I never achieved anything significant through random effort. Every major breakthrough, every meaningful advance, every significant invention came from the systematic operation of well-developed internal machinery. Your mind must become an achievement engine. Your thoughts must become systematic processes. Your efforts must become reliable protocols, but only if you build them intentionally, only if you develop them systematically, only if you maintain them consistently. This is why I say, build the machine inside you, not some of it, not most of it, all of it. Create your systems, develop your protocols, establish your processes, because in the end, consistent achievement comes from reliable machinery. The difference between occasional success and consistent achievement often lies not in talent or opportunity, but in the reliability of your internal machinery. Not in how bright your flashes of insight are, but in how systematic your processes are. Your mind is your most powerful tool. Your thoughts are your most valuable resources. Your internal processes are your most important assets. But only if you build them into a reliable machine, only if you develop them into systematic protocols, only if you maintain them with consistent care. Start building your internal machinery, start developing your systematic processes, start creating your reliable protocols. Your achievements are waiting to be manufactured by the machine you build inside yourself. Because in the end, success isn't about what you do occasionally. It's about what your internal machinery produces consistently. It's not about moments of brilliance. It's about systems of reliability. It's not about what you can do once. It's about what the machine inside you can produce repeatedly. Build this machine, maintain it, improve it, trust it. Because once you've built a reliable engine of achievement inside yourself, nothing in this world can stop you. You become more than just a person pursuing success. You become a systematic producer of progress, a reliable generator of achievement, an unstoppable machine of innovation.